again. Alright, so now let's take a look at how we can modify this code and actually wire in a control panel so that we can change some of these parameters while the system is running. So I've made a copy of the code and I've called it Go8, and it links up with a main8 as usual. And what I've done is I've added a control panel object. So CP here is a control panel. And I've got a few variables now. I've got the range start, which is the X location where we want to begin filling tubes. I've got the delta, which is this 0.2, 0.01, this number that we keep changing to specify the difference between source and destination. And I've got a Boolean flag called skip, which I'll use to abort a current simulation cycle, go back to empty tubes, reload the individual, and start a new simulation cycle. So again, create the exist object, create a display, connect it to the exist, and link it up. And now I create a control panel. So new control panel, this is a title that will go on the top of it. And I'm going to create a few objects in here. So I'm going to create a button. So cp.connect. So the first argument is usually this. This tells it where it should find the event code that it's going to call when the event happens. Control panel.button is a static, which says I want a button. 0 is the index of the button. There's 4 buttons. I'm talking about the first button. And I'm giving it a unique user ID that I can use inside my event code if I want to use one set of code to handle multiple events. So this button is going to be event 10. It's going to be labeled continue, and I'm going to call my event code when the button gets clicked. I'm also going to connect a pair of sliders. So control panel.slider specifies a slider. Slider 0 will be used to control a delta. Slider 1 will be used to control a location. So this is an initial value, a minimum, and a maximum. So the delta goes from 0 to 1000 by 1 with an initial value of 1, and the location goes from 0 to 30, initial location 10. And delta I'm going to divide by 100, so I'll be going from 0 up to 10 with an initial delta of 0.01. The delta slider is code 11, the location slider is index 12. My run number is still 0 as usual, and I'm also creating a set text window, so a text output window on the control panel by calling set text true. Alright, what does our main simulation loop do? Again, we run forever, we bump up the run number, we clear some tubes, but now instead of going from 10 to 20, we go from range start to range start plus 10, and we specify a source concentration of whatever B is. It's a random number from 0 to 40, but a destination concentration of B minus whatever our delta is. And then our main simulation loop is the same, except that inside the loop we check the skip flag, and the skip flag is set. We clear it, but we also break out of the loop, which will end our simulation, which will bring us back up to the beginning of our while true loop. So that's a way to change some numbers and then say, okay, I want to see how this looks from the beginning. And then the event handler code is just a switch statement. Event 10, we just set the skip flag to be true. 11, we set delta to be the slider position over 100. And 12, we set the range start to whatever the slider position is. And there's some sleep code down here at the bottom if we ever need it. So we can compile Go8, and then we can run main8. And now we have a set of code which is a little more interesting to play with. So here's a blow up of the window, and you can see that with our delta currently 0.01, we have this slow migration from right to left. But if I increase the delta and I say continue, which will repopulate the tubes, we get this very quick migration from right to left. Pick a smaller delta and you can see a smaller, slower movement. And here's a much smaller delta. And if I change the location to move more to the right, we get to see that sort of spreading out that's taking place. And if we put the location all the way over to the right, which is position 30, then we see the upper tubes being stable and the lower tubes filling up until they start to saturate near 0. And so this is just an example of how we can use these sliders to start playing with the system a little more and get a better feel for what it can do. So this is a step towards being able to actually programmatically configure the system to do certain things, like oscillate between two regions of chemicals, for example. And over here we just have the continual live display running. I'm not resetting the display back to the beginning, but we could do that by clearing the time step in the exist object. Alright, so that's just a demo of setting up a control panel and using that to interact with the exist simulation. Hope that helps. Be back with more videos later. Thanks.